We all hear the advice on how to get rich, right? But what if it actually works? What's the real cost of that climb? That's what we're going to break down today. We're going to look at the journey from 0 all the way to 100 million, and more importantly, the psychological shifts that nobody, and I mean nobody, ever warns you about.
Everything starts with a number. This number, right here. Look at it. That's not some savings goal for the future. No, that's your bank balance right now. And you're checking it at like 11:43 at night, lying on a mattress you probably got off Facebook Marketplace. You refresh the app a minute later. Nope, hasn't changed. Welcome to the starting line. And that one little number, it creates an entire world around you, doesn't it? It's the weight of those loans, it's that high-stakes mental math you do in the grocery store, that moment you decide to put the good olive oil back on the shelf. It's, splitting a streaming password with someone you don't even really like anymore, just because the thought of paying for your own feels like you're going backwards. That is what 0 feels like. It's just this low, constant hum of anxiety and math running underneath every single thing you do.
And this right here is the absolute core of what we're talking about today. The journey from that number to 100 million isn't just about adding zeros to your bank account. It's about the person you have to become to make it happen. It is a complete and total transformation. And believe me, that transformation has a price.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning, ground zero. I like to call this the suffocation stage, because at this point, money isn't a tool, it's air, and you're just never, ever sure if you have enough to breathe.
So, rule number 1. At 0, your relationship with money is 100% emotional. Every decision is driven by how you feel. You get a little raise, you feel rich for, an afternoon. And then bam, the car needs a $900 repair, and it's all gone, plus some. You learn the hard way that expenses they swell to fill whatever new space you create. It's this vicious cycle that's compounding, but in the wrong direction.
But then, something small happens. A little win. You finally pay off a credit card. And you screenshot that 0 balance, right? You don't send it to anyone, it's just for you, but it means everything. Because for the very first time, a number moved in the right direction because of something you did. And this is the first big mental shift. Money stops being just about survival, about safety. It becomes information. It becomes data you can actually use.
All right, so that brings us to the next phase. This is where you graduate from just surviving, now you start building. This is the climb.
So all of a sudden your net worth looks like this, $110,000. You've got the 401k maxed out, you've got the emergency fund. I mean, you're doing everything you're supposed to do. But then one night, you're up late, you're messing with a spreadsheet, running the numbers, and this cold feeling just creeps in. You realize the traditional path, it's safe, it's enough, but it's not what you really want.
And that feeling leads you straight to rule number 2. You have this sudden, crystal clear realization. Your salary isn't a floor, it's a ceiling. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. So you start a side project. You don't even call it a business. It's just this thing you do on weekends. But then it starts making money. And you can physically feel this gap opening up between where your salary could ever take you and where this new thing might go. And that gap, that's where all the leverage is.
Okay, so here's where things get interesting. Socially. This is where the friction starts. Your priorities have fundamentally shifted. See, at 25 grand, you'd spend money to go on that group trip just to maintain the friendship, to be there. But at 300 grand, you start saying no, because that money isn't for a vacation anymore. It's capital. It's fuel for the machine you're building. And your friends, they might think you're being cheap, but you know you're just being protective of your future.
Which brings us to rule number 3. See, when you start, you are buying all the assets. Every stock, every property, it's all you actively doing it. But then you cross a certain threshold, maybe around $500,000, and something just magical starts to happen. The assets start buying each other. The rent from one property starts paying the mortgage on the next. The dividends from your stocks are automatically reinvesting and buying more stocks. The machine, it's starting to run itself. And then it happens. It's probably a random Tuesday morning. You refresh your brokerage account, and there it is, that number. You're a millionaire. You kind of sit there for a second, expecting, fireworks, a feeling of, I've made it, something.
But instead of that big feeling of arrival, you get hit with cold, hard math. You realize, wait a minute, $1 million, using the 4% rule, that's only $40,000 a year. That isn't freedom. That's not I'm done. And that's when you get it. The first million was never the destination. It was just the proof of concept. It was just the proof that your machine works. Now, you have to scale it.
And this right here is where the entire game changes. We're moving past the spreadsheets and the mechanics of just accumulating money. Now we're getting into the really abstract and, frankly, often isolating psychology of what it means to have real wealth. The rules are just different up here.
And this is so important to understand. Rule number 4, wealth is not what you accumulate. It's what you no longer have to do. It's about owning your own time. It's the ability to say no to a meeting you don't want to take. It's the freedom to just disappear for 3 weeks and know that everything won't fall apart. You haven't just bought stocks and real estate. You've bought autonomy. You've literally bought your life back.
But as you climb, something else happens. You realize your reality has become untranslatable. You can't talk about your problems with your old friends anymore. I mean, how can you? Complaining about a $500,000 investment decision sounds like a bizarre fantasy to them. But to you, it's a real stressful problem. You're using the same words, but you're speaking a completely different language.
Once you hit around 10 million, you discover rule number 5, and it's a wild one. Your reputation becomes its own financial instrument. People aren't just investing in your ideas anymore, they're investing in you, in your track record. Your name itself is now an asset. Suddenly, deals start coming to you. You get offered better terms. Your past success starts generating future returns, almost on autopilot.
And this creates a really heavy, really complex new challenge. Suddenly, the distance between your decisions and their consequences gets huge. A choice you make on a spreadsheet, maybe to restructure a company to improve the margin profile by 2%, well, on the other end of that decision, 140 people might lose their jobs. There's this dangerous, abstract gap that opens up between your world and the very real human impact of your choices.
Which leads us to the final rule. Rule number 6. Above $50 million, money stops being a scorecard for your personal success. It becomes something else entirely. It becomes a measure of your reach. It's a tool for leverage on a massive scale. It's about your ability to shape entire systems, to fund groundbreaking research, to shift markets with just a few questions in a boardroom. It's not about worth anymore. It's about reach.
Okay, so let's bring this all home. After all that, what's the real price of the climb? After all the rules, all the work, all the transformation, what's the final bill?
It brings us right back to here, to this number. Remember that person, the one who is just hoping to buy the good olive oil without having a panic attack? The person who thought if they just made a little more money, all their problems would just resolve themselves?
But the real cost? It was never about the dollars. It was about the distance. The unbridgeable, irreversible gap between the person you were when you started and the person you had to become to finish. You were forged in that fire, and you can't go back.
That journey, it starts with the quiet anxiety of an almost empty bank account, but it ends with a very different kind of quiet. It ends in a room that goes silent the moment you begin to speak, not because of the words you're saying necessarily, but because of what you now represent. That is the final form of wealth. That's influence. So, in the end, the question isn't, can you make the money? The playbook for that more or less exists. The real question is much harder. Knowing the full cost, the distance, the isolation, the complete transformation required, are you willing to become the person who can?